a Limerick interview today, Conal. You know, a little bit of reaction from the All-Ireland final, but I've been following a few of them on Instagram, and to say taking a call from this show would be the least thing on their minds. They're sitting at a river in the sun. This is just, when you think back to last December, and they won an All-Ireland with nobody in the stadium, and massive worry around COVID, around winter time, and could they go into a pub, could they do anything? They've had 40,000 of the loudest fans ever, and they have the nicest weather that they could ever hope for. It's like being in the Costa del Sol in Limerick for the week. Like, it's some change in the celebrations. We never had a chance of getting one of them, basically.
No, like I can only imagine, you know, after a win, and the couple of days after are the most enjoyable, when you're all sitting around and everyone's nice and relaxed and everyone's having a couple of drinks and the slagging is going flying it, and some reporter rings you, like you're probably ringing them, and they're like, "Jeez, lads, I'm not answering this," and then nobody answers it. Like, so yeah, look, it's difficult, but it would have been nice to hear some of their reactions, like, you know, when there's no pressure on them, and it's a couple of days after the final, to get a real insight. But obviously that's just the way it is. Like, pretty much nearly like the Dublin footballers, everything is kept in house, and you're nearly always on duty. That's the way it is. On
like an ideal world, someone would take a video call and I talk to all of them at the pub. That's fairy tale stuff. That's just not going to happen. I wanted to talk a bit, Paddy, about John Kiely, and kind of how unassuming he is. And like, Kinnerk, let's be honest, gets a lot of the credit for the tactical stuff, and rightly so, because he's very, very good at that kind of stuff. John Kiely, you know, is the manager, but he's not. Like, this is a 3-time All-Ireland winning manager now, and he wouldn't be kind of spoken in the same way as a Davy Fitzgerald or a Brian Cole, you know, like, or a Liam Sheedy. Why is that?
Well, I suppose maybe that when it comes to media, they have an aura around them. I don't think John Kiely has that aura around him, and I'd say it suits him down to the ground. There doesn't seem to be much of a showbiz off him. Even, I know you might say that about Cody, but he just seems to have that presence. And he was a one-man band, really, Cody. We don't talk much about the guys behind the scenes on the management.
No.
Cody. It's just that fearsome Darth Vader type figure. Like, so John Kiely kind of blends into the background. But I do think it's obvious to see in his interviews that there's a really hard edge. And especially the first game of the season, when he wasn't happy with the rule changes, I would say it comes across to the players that he is the boss. But I often say with managers, when you see them doing media, they're trying to portray a different look on themselves. Even anybody, maybe me or whoever, you're portraying, maybe you don't want to portray your true self. And I would have seen that definitely with Liam Sheedy. He's probably sterner than what he seems in the media, and Eamon O'Shea is probably more relaxed than what he seems in the media. So right. I think you're not trying to show any of the weaknesses. So I could imagine a principal there now is well used to keeping people in check, and I could imagine that nothing goes without his say-so.
What's your take on it, Con? I've noticed a bit more intensity from him on the line. Like, I mean, when lads are coming off, he'll just kind of maybe give them the fist. You know, I see him a little bit more intense this year. Not so much in his maybe even a bit more in his interviews.
Yeah, look, I'd say he's a great manager to play under. Like, there's no razzmatazz, there's no sideshows going on. It's black or white with him. Like, you perform, you play, and we're here to perform for Limerick, and there's no one above anyone else. And it's like nearly Jim Gavin had that for a while. And yeah, Paddy's right. The managers and players and try to throw out this perception of them whether they wanted to keep a low key or they want to just say very little in the media, whatever it is, and just trug along and get the results. Like, I know, like Pat Gilroy's the same. You go to these press conferences or media nights, and you're more or less told what to say before you walk in here. Like, you're keeping it to this, and that's you're not going off script, because you don't want any attention going either way. And he's the exact same. He's all about results, Kiely, and it's proven like that. I don't think he really cares that he's not, and I'd say it probably suits him that he's not the same kind of attention that Davy or Sheedy, whoever gets, because ultimately it comes down to results, and it comes down to what's the squad think of you and your own supporters. It's irrelevant what the lads in the Sunday game think or what we think. They don't even listen, I'd say, to any of that. And I think being a good manager, a good manager is having the trust in the guys around you, letting them flourish and letting them dictate a lot of the times. Okay, sometimes they might need to be checked and pulled back a little bit, but having the trust in your guys around you and having the trust in the players to go and express themselves, albeit in one general game plan, but I think that's a huge benefit that Kiely has, that he's not afraid to let other people get a bit of limelight, or let them do what they're good at, because he particularly maybe might be good in certain areas, but overall he could just gel it all together, and that's what a good manager is in business or in hurling or football.
I think that's it. And like, I think it was the Tipperary game, Paddy, where after the game he gave the credit to Connacht for the switch. Now don't tell me Cody or Davy or Sheedy or any of them, he would say, we made that switch, or I made that switch. Like he said, Paul Connacht's very good at that stuff, and he spotted it very quickly and completely gave the credit over to him. Like, I mean, there can be no ego there whatsoever.
No, I'd say very authentic, and that does reflect onto the players. I would admire that. If I was any part of that panel at all, I really respect that sort of thing, because it shows I'm not here for myself. Like, there's a lot of talk that the first day he got involved with Limerick underage was when Tip, we beat him very, very well in 0-9 comprehensively, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back for him. So a lot of people will be running at that stage and saying, Jesus, I'm not getting involved with this Limerick crowd.
Yeah.
There's too much work to be done. We're laughing stock. And he went the other way. So he's only there. He came in at the very bottom, and now he's seen it all the way to the top. But I'd say he gives it off to the players as well. But if you do that, if you're giving the praise to the players when they deserve it, to the management, then you also reserve the right that when they don't work hard enough or they're not up to standard, that you can chew the head off them, because they know then you're not doing it because you're frustrated. Maybe you didn't prepare the team well enough. You're frustrated because they're not playing up to their ability. And I think that is, in this day and age, players are too smart, and that is vital to have.
Yeah, Gerard Hegarty said after the game, like, it's actually gas. He says, we're absolutely blessed with the management team John has put together. Paul's trainings are absolutely unbelievable. Nobody sees them, and that's the way we want it. Like, instead of going, God, we're so lucky to have John, we're so lucky to have the team John put together.
Yeah, well, I think that just comes from probably the mantra that John has been preaching since he's been in there. It's all about the collective and not any individual. And look, players in situations like that, they sniff any little bit of hassle or anything that goes on in the squad, because you're watching absolutely everything. And if John is giving the praise to other guys and letting them have certain roles, everyone feels part of it, and there's no one going off on a solo run, or if something doesn't go right, that's then when the problems really arise, where someone will be like, "Jeez, I knew that wasn't going to happen." You go on your little twos and threes, and that cuts all that out, because everyone has a role and everyone's on the one hymn sheet. And look, credit to him for doing that. And it's not the easiest thing to do, and it's a very hard thing to get a whole panel all happy, because there's always 3 or 4 lads that are either not happy to be in the squad, or not or not happy to be sitting on the bench, or whatever it is. So credit to him for that, and I think everyone that's there is a valuable member of the management team, be it lads picking up the cones or lads going collecting the slitters, or be it John himself. So everyone's exactly the same. There's no one above anyone else.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I mean, a lot of people say to win 2 in a row, Paddy, you have to, bring in some new players onto the team. They're pretty much working with the same starting 15 or maybe 16. Mulcahy's dropped out now, and Casey's there all the time. Dan Morrissey has come in because in my case he was injured. But like, I mean, it's pretty much the same 15. And, we always praise Brian Cody for saying, or Jim Gavin, you bring in 2 or 3 fresh ones to kind of keep everybody on their toes. So he seems to be able to keep everyone on his toes without doing that, which that's always hindsight analysis, I suppose. Whereas, we should, acknowledge the fact that he hasn't done that really, and is still getting them to perform at the level they are.
Yeah, but I suppose you have to look back into the roots of it and look back into the league this year. And I think they tried the most players out in the league. So I think from the very start, it's known that it's an open-ended panel and an open-ended team. Now, at the end of the day, he's probably happiest that by the time the All-Ireland final came, he arrived at the obvious best team that Limerick have. Yeah. The obvious best team that they have is what lined out on Sunday. But if you let complacency come in, and you don't try out these players, and you let Aaron Gillan, tip away, and he's not working hard enough, maybe he gets taken off and he gets to start again, suddenly that filters through a team. So you had Aaron Gillan got dropped for the Munster final. Yeah. Now he's buzzing saying, I need to be performing better. You have the lad, Graham Mulcahy, is kind of on another edge saying, well, I still have a chance in this team. Morrissey, fullback, is it Tom?
Dan.
Or Dan, sorry, Dan, I always get mixed up. He wasn't starting for the first round, the second round. I'm beating it all year saying, geez, he is their best fullback, maybe one of their best wing backs. He has to be starting. He wasn't starting. So you have all these guys, they know well they are the best players, but they know if they're not going at it, then he won't start them. And I think, right, it's easy to say now, Jesus, they got their best team on the field, they're playing well, but that happens from the start of the year, knowing that it's actually not safe if they're not playing to the standard required.
Dropping Galan was a big one. That was a big one, and that's a big message that he sends out. Tom Morrissey was talking after the game. He says, with all the additions to the panel and people chasing your spot, if you have to have that desire to be a better hurler, a better athlete, then you can always improve on different facets of your game on and off the pitch, whether it be sleep, nutrition, or in the gym, or your hurling ability. Just that desire to be better. If you're not moving forward, you're going to be passed out. And I suppose that's obviously the message they're all given. That, like, look at the physiques of them. Did you ever see like Cian Lynch without his jersey on? He's like you're looking at someone like it's like Ronaldo's, this
No, there's
sculpted
no one there with
physique.
a spare tyre sticking out.
No,
that's for sure.
certainly not.
And the jersey's getting tired. I'm glad I'm retired now.
But they just seem to have this insatiable desire to almost be like professionals.
Yeah, it is. And I think that just comes down to, obviously, the individuals themselves. It comes down to John and the management team setting the standards. And it also comes down to the games in training. Like, I'm sure, it's like nearly every inter-county team. A's will play the B's, and then at half-time, if some so-called A starter isn't doing well, he's swapped onto the B's, and some lad in the B is swapped up, and then questions are asked, and then you're wondering if that's you that's moved from the A to the B. You're like, Jesus, like, am I not going to be playing next week now? What's the story? Like, so you have to try and put more of an effort in to get back into the A's. And look, it's credit to them. You have to give it to them. They're head and shoulders above every team at the minute. Now, look, it's very hard to maintain that over a long period of time, and will they be able to do it? Their age profile at Everton is going that way to say yes, they'll be around for a long time. But look, you just never know. Like, new man in Tipperary will rejuvenate them. And
not in yet.
No, I said
a new man.
I
I thought you were talking about Cahill.
Will be in, and that'll give Tipperary a new lease of life. And I suppose they feel that they can go at them. Okay, they disappointed in the second half, but at least they know they have the ability to go at them for a certain period. And Kilkenny will probably come again, and you just never know how it goes, But it's all is set up that Limerick will be there for another while. But I think we say that nearly after every All Ireland.
Yeah.
But I think the age profile of these lads and the ability of them, and I know we talked about it loads of times, but it's this unbelievable the touch and the hurling that they have. Like and it's been said loads, and we said it here, that the ball sticks every time, whether it's inside, whether it's into the hand, or whether it's a hand pass across, never drops. And while I suppose Cork would needed that second or third touchdown the weekend, and that just kills you because they're just swarm you, take the ball off you, and it's nearly game over at that point.
And Cork are a very skillful team, which makes it even more confusing. I want to talk about hurling and football tactics here, Paddy, and I don't want to upset any hurling people that are listening. I'm wondering how far behind football tactically is hurling, because hurling in the last 2 or 3 years has and Connacht has used a lot of football, kind of keep the ball, possession based game, a running game, almost football like deliveries into the full forward line, diagonal balls, all these things which have been in football for a good while. Like Paul Murphy said on the show on Monday, that was 2019 was the first time he's ever seen a bunch and break in the full forward line. So and that was against Limerick. So they're marking lads and they're crisscrossing and they're all in together and they're breaking out. Now, I'm not being smart. That's in Gaelic football since the year 2000 or, before. And so they had to figure out during the game, we stand on the outside of these lads and things like that. And Kieran Donaghy went in with Galway, and immediately I saw a difference in the full forward line in Galway. They went 2 with 1 in front of them, a bit like Limerick, and their movement was good. And I'm just wondering, traditionally in hurling, you don't need movement like Gaelic football, because a high ball often was cleared down, and you wouldn't be breaking for it maybe like you need to now. And I don't know, would hurling teams benefit from a fella with a football background?
Well, I think they would. I don't think there's any doubt of that. It depends on the fella, obviously. We certainly would have had Cian O'Neill involved with us when Liam Sheedy came in first, so we had him for, I think it was 3 to 4 years. And I thought he brought a lot. He brought a lot in terms of tackling. He brought a lot in terms of small-sided games and the tactical elements. So that was only one person involved for a few years. So I definitely do. I think the organisation, but the only problem with hurlers, and in my experience of hurlers, is we're extremely set in our ways. And if you only ever play hurling all your life and you didn't play soccer, you didn't play rugby or Gaelic football, then I find that your vision for how the game can be played is completely different. It's a really, really narrow view.
Yeah.
And talk of doing something different nearly upsets a player, especially a club player, nearly upsets him and say, well, I know how to play this stuff. And the thought of growth and personal growth and growth in your gameplay isn't as open. And I just think it is difficult, but it is coming in more and more. But I never thought we'd see the ability of a player that Limerick have at the minute. As Conal said there, their touch. I talk about their physicality is unbelievable, their attitude. But to be able to get the ball to the hand nearly every time, and even sometimes there's lads tackling him. I see Will O'Donoghue throwing it over a guy's head to touch it back to himself. So how it's like magnet to him. So you do need to have that skill, but certainly tactics are forming more and more part of the game. But look, I think I go back in you and say, look, I think football would have less tactics if there was more practice in the skill form. I have lots of friends that play football, and I think if their skills were better in general, their kicking was better, I don't think they'd need and have to rely as much on the tactics either.
One thing about Gaelic football, and Jim McGuinness won an All-Ireland from counter-attack football, and those, when they turned over the ball and broke, players weren't used to it, Conal. You know, you might stand up. You wouldn't be used to working hard and having to chase back that counter-attack. And Paul Murphy was saying on Monday as well that hurlers still haven't gotten used to tracking a runner that doesn't have the ball. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it's not really in the psyche. And there's lots of really smart hurling people who don't even like the fact that hurlers are picking each other out with passes. You know, it's a strange one, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think in the last couple of minutes there's so much there to pick on. Do football guys bring something to the hurling? Yeah, they obviously do. But I think someone from like a rugby background or a basketball background can also bring something too. I think, the hurling has probably been traditionally, you know, play nearly corner forward will come out and drift around and play two up front, and that was always the way. And now it is. Look, I think it's changing, not just this year, in the last previous, for them even like 5 years, I think it's been changing a little bit. Teams have been trying things like, I've often seen Kilkenny, as I was saying to you before, Kilkenny will put 4, if not 5 in the half back line if things aren't going their way for a few minutes, and then they'll push back again and go out. So, and they did that back when we used to play them under Daly. So when we were well aware of that, and then we tried to do the same thing, but obviously it's a different situation. But I think you have to be open-minded to tactically what other people can bring and other games can bring, other sports can bring to it. And Limerick are probably trying that. They're bringing a little bit of that football element to it at the minute. So like this, and I agree with Paddy as well that tactics are to do with nearly the players that you have and the skill set of them. Because at the minute, football is played with so much hand passing and slowing it down because lads haven't got the ability to kick a ball 50 or 60 yards in and give it the forward side of the full forward that's made a little burst. They just haven't got the ability to do that. So what else do? They hand pass and get it up and try and get someone through, get it free, and that's how it's kind of progressed a little bit. So hurling is a little different. I don't think it's going to go majorly in tactical, because you can still bypass. If you have a good lad in the full forward line, you can still bypass a lot to get a lad in, and he could catch a ball and bang it in the net, and then all your tactics around the middle are out the window. But yeah, it's very hard to play a short hurling game if you're not like Limerick. If you try and play it and you drop the ball, or someone's dropping the ball coming out of half back line and you're turned over, goal, then the next day in training you're thinking, well, I don't think we should play like this because we're leaving ourselves open. If lads are running and we're not getting the
not
first
good enough
touch
to get it to hand.
Yeah, so there's loads in it. And look, I think Limerick are the top team, and they can decide whatever way they want to play, and they can go long, which I was so surprised at how much space is just left there. They just seem to be, the tactics seem to be hit it either side of the posts, you know, outside the men, and it's irrelevant if they look up or if they're not, because the lads inside, Galan and Flanagan, know these balls are going to these spots, so they can make, you know, they can just dodge one way and go the other, and they're both splitting. So if it goes left or right, they know where the ball is going to, they know the space there. So it sounds very simple, but it takes an awful lot of work to trust the guys outside that the ball is going to come in and hit these spots. And yes, they have to be patient, the lads inside, because they don't need to be running like a football, and sometimes in the football and whatever, you need to be making 1, 2, 3 runs. You hear this, and then your fourth or your third run, you get the ball. In hurling, with the way Limerick are playing, you can stand. You can stand there with your man and just make one jink, and your marker may fall for it, and you're gone out to that side because you know the ball is coming and you can get it into your hand, and you've saved so much energy because the ball can come that 60 or 70 yards.
Yeah.
I know that's a long-winded answer to whatever, but there is a lot tactically, but you need to have the players that have a serious skill set to be able to change it up so quickly.
The idea that for the Galan goal, Paddy, right? So this is something, you play cornerback a lot. Like, this is where I see movement in a full forward line isn't coached that well in hurling, especially for the new style of hurling that's there. So, for example, if you're marking left corner back, your man will generally run out to his own wing and try to collect ball, and you can read that and get out in front of him, get a touch away. So if you look at the Galan goal, Flanagan was on the other side of the field, right? And that looked like it was going to be a diagonal ball to Galan's side. Galan got out of there and Flanagan came across. Now, O'Donoghue thought that, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll stay here because this is the usual. I'll beat my man for the ball. And Flanagan won it and put it across the Glen. He's completely free. Do you get me? Like, they're making runs away from the ball, which is definitely not, something that's usual in hurling, and it's definitely confusing cornerbacks.
100%. I suppose there's a couple of elements in that. Number one is that there was only really two inside at the time, probably within 40 metres. Maybe Casey was a little bit out from goal. So you have all that space. The big mistake that a lot of forwards I would ever have marked, particularly back in the earlier days, is it was in and out. So vertical, in and out that run. And it was like, even no matter what space was there, and especially if you play three forwards inside, they really only had that little column in the middle, left or right, to move in. But now, as I said, you're using two guys so they can move over and back. Now that's tough enough, but another element I think the Limerick guys have is they're so mature in their system now. Sometimes they're moving to get the ball, and other times they're moving for their partner to get the ball. And I think that is a huge level to be on, because a lot of the time you're, as a forward, like 2-year forwards, you want to get on the score sheet. I'm in the forward, I want to stay on the field, so I want to feel good about myself or whatever. I think I'm helping the team. But they know a lot of the time, Flanagan will say, well, if I run out of this space, I know Aaron Glan has a huge mountain of space to run into, and he's going to have an easy ball in. So I think they're working very well together. I think, as Conal said, that ball is travelling into the same spots every time. It was like Groundhog Day. I actually felt so bad for the cornerbacks, the fullbacks. Like it was nigh on impossible to defend from. But they're over and over again. They're very, very good at it. But for that goal,
but Paddy,
it was a crossfire.
Just a quick one on that. So, do you remember the last day Damien was making a laugh of me because traditionally the defender stays goal side of his man. Now I understand that, but that's the traditional way of doing it. If, for example, you have Flanagan and Galan standing on the edge of the square, if those two cornerbacks stood on the outside of these two fellas, and you're not marking either of them, you're marking the lad that crosses towards you. You've got to step on him then, don't you?
Very difficult.
So?
Difficult. Because to say if the two of us are playing inside here and we're being marked on the outside, all I have to do is walk over towards you and nearly go, even just loop around you and come back out my own side, if you get me, into the left side. So, and all you want your defender to do is just check back once to see where you are. And when he checks back once, you're gone. And he can't pull you back. Them days are gone where if he pulls you back, you nearly go down, whatever, it'd be a free in. So I think it's to mark on the outside and to hope that you're going to catch your man when he makes that break coming across. It's very difficult. You want to have serious pace and be reading the game really, really well.
But on that, have you seen anyone within 2 or 3 metres of Flanagan when he breaks, the way they're doing it?
No, but they're breaking so smartly. They wouldn't even be calling with each other. It's nearly just eye contact, and because they've been playing so long together, they know that if they see the possession coming down the line, when it gets to a certain area, they know, right, we have to go. And we both obviously don't go. Sometimes they do go the same direction, but one will go long and one will stay in nice and tight.
Line, yeah.
So if the ball is come say to the 45, then Flanagan is out first. But if it goes in behind him, well then Galan is there. So they know. They just know. It just seems to know when the ball is hit in certain positions, or certain players have the ball, that it's either going diagonal or it's going to come down nice and short. So that doesn't come overnight. That comes with years and years of practice and playing with the same players all the time.
They're smart enough to know as well. You're not just dealing with over and across the line. You have depth there as well. So one guy can be on the 6-yard box and he's moving across that line or out. and the other guy is on the 14 or the 21. So we're thinking of it as just over and back, but they can move forward and backwards as well. They have 180 degrees to work in front of them. And if you try and read it like that, we actually played Cork, did it years ago now, actually, before, and it was horrendous. And a couple of our lads said maybe we'll stay on the same side, and tried it for a couple of plays. They're able to run out the middle as well. Like, it's just, you have to try and stay close to your man. Unfortunately, that's where a sweeper comes in, because he will cut a portion of that space out, and then you might be able to actually go on the inside or the outside.
Could you mark Flanagan from the front? Now, I know you couldn't mark Elan from the front because he's brilliant in the air and it's too risky, but could you mark Flanagan from the front? Flanagan's always trying to break out. Could you mark him from the front then? At least give him something different to think about.
Well, I think if you're playing a sweeper back, it allows you maybe to go one side or the other. But I think playing him from in front, sure, he may just jerk to go forward and come back and go left. Like, so you're caught, you know.
Well, you could across that space.
The safest bet is to play him, obviously, goal side and hope that he doesn't kind of go around you. And, you might get a block in or you might stop something. But, look, I think playing two up front, especially those two guys, it's nearly impossible when there's so much space. Now, if the space isn't there, it's a little bit different because then they only have over and back nearly to go. But they had all they had it was like a dream for them on the weekend. And I got the impression that Limerick, they didn't really need to go into that extra gear. They didn't look that tired for me. They weren't working unbelievably hard, but they were just going through it as if Cork weren't even there. It was just so easy for them.
It was so easy, yeah.
But just on the other one, on tactically inside for the forwards, like, I wasn't the paciest inside, and I used to play a little bit of football with Alan Brogan. He was pacey, and he wanted space, right?
Yeah.
So there was a couple of times when we were, maybe it was against Leeds or whatever, in Crow Park, we used to come together, and he used to be always hovering around me because he knew that he could obviously get to that pockets of space before I could get there. So we'd be in nearly on top of the keeper. And I'd be like, this is a nightmare, Alan, will you keep out? And he'd never keep out because he knew that any ball that was coming in, he was gone, he'd get it. So I think that was the start for where you're all together, you're nearly in on top of the keeper, and he'd go around the back of you, so his man would come around, so you're obviously going to block his man. So that's always what he'd get, that whatever 5 or 6 yards ahead of everyone else out to get the ball, and then he's off. Yeah. But it's look, they're all just little things I think players pick up as you go. But when good players that have pace have space, there's not much you can do.
It's difficult, yeah. There's no doubt about it if the ball coming in is right. Would you ever had a situation, Paddy, just to move off this, where there's 2 or 3 men in full forward line and they're close together, and your man makes a break and the other towards one of his teammates, and one of his teammates blocks you and he gets away on out?
Yeah, that's happened to me. Very, very, very frustrating. And that's actually where, as a cornerback, I'd be nearly lashing out at that stage. You're so frustrated with it. Even a little walk in front of you, and I've seen it happen a lot. But that does happen, and it's probably one thing tactically, like if you can call it a tactic, from puck outs, you'd see that happening a bit as well, and you should see it a bit more, I'd say, in GAA. But it certainly does happen. But again, I think hurling is a very fast sport. When you're being coached to growing up, it's nearly all about the skills, because if you don't have them, you'll never do a tactic. And I think we are stunted slightly with that because we're so preoccupied in high ball, low ball, striking, everything. There's so much, in my opinion, in it that tactics are sometimes left behind a little. And that's why I think other sports would be brilliant to play, just to kind of fill in that gap.
Yeah, the one thing I've always been talking about, this Limerick half forward line, and like I'm on the side now where you nearly have to play a sweeper against Limerick and let your half back line man mark very, very tight, because invariably Limerick will free up one of the defenders anyways. You have to deal with Hannon being the extra man no matter what way you play, so why not just get it down there, have everyone clear what you're doing? Because we were saying on Monday, when Cian Lynch didn't drop too deep, it was almost impossible for Cork to drop their midfielder onto Markham, and then you have Coleman trying to drop off him in a dangerous position. It was a total mess. Like, I mean, I like the way Cian Lynch played on Sunday. I don't think any team can ever think about dropping their centre back off him. Yeah,
look, it probably was a dream for Keaney when he had so much space and he was his mark was dropping off him. But I just can't see how you'd sit on a Tuesday or Thursday before a big game and you'd say, right, who do we have to man mark here? Like, Cian Lynch is definitely the first man, you'd say. No matter where he goes, you just go with him. Don't pass him off to anyone, because passing him off is giving Cian Lynch that license to get that couple of seconds where he probably will get the ball and set up something. So if that's the case, you have to stay with these guys all the time. Whether Keane goes back down to his own whatever full back line, you just go with them, and at some stage then we can make a change. But you can't leave lads like that with that quality free, and especially in big games. It's just madness. And there seem to be 2 or 3 of them. Garrod Hegarty, how many times was he free? I don't know whether it was zonal or
Tim O'Mahony was marking him, but he can be a bit of a headless chicken at times. Like,
maybe Cork did have some tactics, and it just didn't work, and it just all went out the window. Lads just whatever. The blinkers came down and they just went on and did their own kind of thing. But it very much was worrying for Cork to see how quickly Limerick got the ball and got inside and were nearly free all the time, which was very strange.
Isn't it a weird one that Cork, Paddy, would have been almost better had Kilkenny just pipped them by a point in that semi-final? They'd have an awful lot to work on in the year. Would Kilkenny have gotten that hammering off Limerick?
I'd say they probably would have, yeah. I think they would have, because if they weren't able to shut down Cork's game, what chance would they have had against Limerick? I don't think they would have had a chance.
Jeez,
even if we talk about midfielders, if they got the hammer,
I'd be surprised.
I wouldn't.
Tactically, I think they would have been a lot better. They would have been conceded those goals. No way. That's my opinion.
I think so. Definitely the kamikaze defending we saw from Cork, you wouldn't have seen that from Kilkenny, Paddy.
Why? Cork scored well against them, like. I don't see. Wexford scored well against them. I don't see why Limerick wouldn't score well against them.
No, I'm thinking about the goals.
Talking about, I don't see, like, Tipperary when they were running the muck rail score goals against Kilkenny. I think they would. It would have been the same thing to me, because they just drown you around the middle of the field, and you can't, and you're left out. You're left on your own inside. I would say the Cork full back line, bar Hugh Lawler, I think they have a good full back line, but I still think they've been under serious pressure, and they actually might have been as bad because they're not used to the ball going in the way it was going in the other day. And I think eventually, no matter who they played, the ball starts going in like that because they just empty you. Like, look, why was Hegarty on his own for that goal? Like, Tim, they were wrecked. They were absolutely wrecked. And I said it before, all these teams playing Limerick, no matter their skill is unbelievable. But they're heavyweights, and it's like they're boxing cruiserweights.
Yeah.
And if you're getting hit by a man heavier than you all that time, you have to carry his weight, you can't go. And Cork looked like they were unfit, and they weren't. They just looked unfit compared to this Limerick team. And then you start making errors, and you start not being able to bunch around the players, and eventually it comes undone. I think they would have taken the same bet.
Yeah. When you, like, I mean, Jesus, the one thing that just stood out to me a mile is Jack O'Connor tried to take on Kyle Hayes by flicking it over him, and Kyle Hayes just put his head when Paddy talks about a heavyweight with a cruiserweight, that's a heavyweight with a middle, like a lightweight.
Yeah.
Just did like physique wise, like, and they do wear you down then, and Limerick don't tire. We saw what they did to Tipperary. Like, there's so many things teams need to catch up on them tactically. How do we figure this out tactically? Where are we physically?
Yeah.
Where are we? Like, the one thing really bothers me is their zonal defence for the puck out. So if we talked about this on the show and we're trying to tease it out and see what you do, if they're zonal and there's not many targets, and we know their half-back line, and Brendan Cummins even talking in The Independent where Kyle Hayes and Dermot Byrne stood on the outside of them, of their men, definitely for puck outs. That's part of their zonal. They don't want to give you that space to break in towards the wings. Yeah. So, like, I mean, even a more basic one, why don't the two wing forwards and the centre forward all meet, have the goalkeeper scratch his head, have the two wing forwards, and now you've 3-on-1 on Hannon, and drop it on Hannon's head? Will Kyle Hayes and Dermot Burns not at least the next time follow their men in a bit? And now you've your space in the wing. I saw none of that from Cork, and this is a tactic now Limerick are using for 3 years.
Yeah.
Conal.
I think we talked about it before, overloading one side with a potential to try and, have a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-1, and if it worked, well, then something has to change. Hannon has to move in, or whatever the case. But they didn't try it, and I remember that incident where O'Connor was soloing in, and Kyle Hayes just flicked the ball off him, but. Like, there was no support to help him. Like, O'Connor.
But that's his game, though. Like, the analysis before the game was, let's run at them and take them on. They ran at them and they were like, it didn't work at all. You know?
I know it is their
Too
game.
Big and strong.
And pace is what they were trying to do and run at them. And yes, it worked for the Kingston's goal, but there was a lot of space at that point. But it would have been the thing if someone's going, someone has to support them. Like, you have to be on his shoulder. So, because the chances are these guys are going to be catching up to you, or they're going to run into some traffic. So someone has to be off his shoulder. There wasn't a lot of it was like individual kind of brilliance at times, which, look, I don't know. You could probably say it was bad tactically by Cork, but you have to give credit to Limerick. I think Paddy's right. They just wear you down and wear you down, and you look like you're just a really bad team or a bad hurler at the time because they make you like that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely it. Well, a little bit of fun here, lads, with the comparisons to 2008. Who would win in a match between Kilkenny 08 and Limerick now? I'm saying Limerick now if they were to play each other because the system would be Kilkenny. But if that Kilkenny team was playing in modern hurling, and we're playing the current style, which they could adapt to, who would win?
Is that to me? Is that the grenade over to me first? Is it?
I generally don't like this kind of nonsense because it's different eras. Impossible.
Neither do I. But I suppose it's coming up in as a topic a lot. And in fairness, it's right to come up in a way because this Limerick team, I think, are unbelievable. Obviously, the only way I think you can judge it is actually nearly going player to player because it has changed so much. Even Kilkenny back then were probably real raw tactics, like very much direct, but they were so good to win it, and you can't assume they wouldn't be able to play another way.
Yeah.
But if you go player to player, I would nearly pick Kilkenny. I think Limerick have unreal players, like brilliant, but they function so well as a team. Like I'd have seen a couple of the players hurling with their club and not stand out half as well, but they're just it's come on so much, it's evolved so much that they're brilliant. But if I look at even the half back line alone, I love Kyle Hayes, but I don't think he's okay going forward. He's got to a great level, but I don't think you could say he's a JJ Delaney yet. Tommy Walsh and Dermot Burns, and sorry, Tommy Walsh is one of the best defenders to ever play the game, and even Hogan in the middle for me is probably better than Declan Hannon. Just as a number, if I was to pick a number 6, I needed to stand in any team, I'd probably pick a Hogan. I think he's faster, stronger, not as good a hurler, but even more driving him. So like if I go into the forwards and I want a lad to just win a raw ball, like if it's a coming between a tight match, I think Kilkenny probably have more lads that will probably stand up and no matter what ball is given to them, do something with it. Now, I could be right. You could maybe argue the other way, but to me, hurler to hurler, I'd probably say Kilkenny.
Yeah. See, the problem with that is, I'm going to move off this because it is silly. The problem with that is we've only seen Kyle Hayes at 23. We've seen JJ's whole career, so you're comparing 1/5 of a career versus a full career. So okay, look, it's you'll go Kilkenny too. I know you will.
Yeah, I probably would go Kilkenny because I probably played against them and take a few beatings off them. So yeah. I know how good all.
They were more dominating, but not yet. We as of now they're more dominating. But Limerick could dominate like that. Yeah,
they could. Obviously, we said they have everything that the ingredients to do that, but it's still a long way to go yet. Though, I think to reach the peaks that Kilkenny team reached, and individually they had some unbelievable hurlers, and yes, Limerick do too, and they're very good, but might be a little bit early to try and say that Limerick are a little bit better than that team, that Kilkenny team at the minute. Yeah, no, it definitely is. Right, we'll move on from that. Tipperary didn't hang around, Paddy, anyways. Like they leave the speculation go. The minute Liam Sheedy hangs up, they're all looking for their new man straight away. It's impressive stuff.
Yeah, that's the job. Try and get it done quickly. I think, especially in modern hurling, I think pre-season is so important that you need to get players going straight away. You know yourself now, if this rattles on for another 2 months, then whoever comes in is trying to get their management team in place. Then players haven't been got together for the S&C program. So all of a sudden they're behind things. Yeah. And that has happened before. So I think very, very important. As we hear, it seems like from the media they've gone for Liam Cahill straight away with huge need that this team has at the minute. So I'm delighted that they've set their stall out. No, none of this. Let's talk to all the different guys. They need to go for Liam Cahill and hope that he's happy to take it.
Yeah, it's impressive enough. Is this technically tapping up? I know his 2-year contract is up, but he's an option for another one. So if this was the Premier League, you'd be getting fined for this kind of stuff, Conal. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I suppose from a Tipperary point of view, they want to get their best man, and they feel that he is, and he clearly is, right? Yeah, so let's go get him. That's the attitude, and they're probably right. Look, I think if you're a Waterford player, you'd be dreading that text or the phone call that's coming to say, listen, it's my whatever. I've been born there and dreamed to manage this team, and I think now is the time I have to do it. So it's disappointing for Waterford possibly, but. Look, I think it's good for Tip. I think he'll be very, very good for Tip. He'll bring that new, excitement back to Tip, and he knows all those young lads, and I don't think he's going to disregard any of the older lads either. You need still that mix
And he might just light the fire under a few of those so-called older lads, and that might just get another season out of him.
Yeah, he's good at lighting fires. Like, I mean, you would have hope for Tip if Liam challenge in Limerick if Liam Cahill took them over, I think, for whatever that means. Brian Lohan is staying on in Clare. This is great news for Clare after 2 good years under him with all the problems. A little bit of childish stuff from the Clare County Board. They recommended him, the county board executive recommended him. It still has to go to the clubs. But then they said in the announcement, the recommendation has been approved by a full meeting of Clare County Board. Brian Lohan is aware of this recommendation. Like, I mean, you know, it's such a thing to say. Like, I mean, there's clearly a breakdown in communications. They don't get on well. There was no need for that last sentence. And it's just telling the whole country kind of like things aren't great between the manager and the county. We kind of can read between the lines, but like just silly stuff. Anyways, Brian didn't take the bait anyways. He's happy to accept it. He's delighted to get 3 years. That's what he wanted. So I suppose, you know, maybe it was important for Brian to come out and accept it straight away. Maybe that's what they were forcing him into doing. Who knows what the hell's going on?
I think if it was me involved in a situation, that I just prefer to keep things behind closed doors and just say, Brian Lohan is the new manager now going forward. Instead of all this nonsense, it's hard enough to manage a team, and you definitely need your county board men with you, you know, to get a few bits and pieces of whatever you need to do. But it makes the job for Brian a little bit more difficult than when there's stuff like that going behind the scenes, and he's never quite sure what the hell they're actually doing, you know. So let's concentrate on the players and let's concentrate on this, but still at the back of your mind is what's these guys, you know, because these county board lads are around the inter-county setup all the time, whether they turn up to training, they're there on the bus at matches, and they're there in the dressing rooms, and some of them can be hard to shake off, you know. And I remember at the start of this, I don't mean shake off, but I mean when you're coming preparing
for... Are they still going to buses now, or is that all gone?
Yeah, well, they were still going to buses when I was still there. And
really?
You know, I remember at the very start of my career with some certain people involved in county board committees. They'd be coming into the dressing room and they'd be going around giving little pep talks to lads. Like, it was, I'm not saying they're doing that now, but like when you're in that setup and you're ready to go in a game, you don't need any extra people in the dressing room. It's just you're just looking around going, that's irritating me. I don't need, you know, he's only in here to listen to what's going on, and you feel like that is going to be getting out. Like, you're just here where was he, you know, when we were training in January and February and March. Like,
but the dressing room's definitely gone. Whatever about the bus, they don't go into dress. I think it was Liam Cairns stopped them coming into the dressing room 15 years ago with us. They're not or maybe just the McNulty, I can't remember, but they're surely the county board officials are not listening.
The last while they were still knocking around, but I think the situation with Dublin, the county board are so good, and they get on with the lads, and there's no issue. Like if John Costello floats her into the dressing rooms, hey John, how are you? There's no big deal. Like, or it's whoever it is, there's no problem, because they know themselves that they may come in, but they're not going to be standing around listening to what's going on or whatever.
Right.
And I think the relationship in my situation was always really good, so there wasn't a major thing. But at the start, it's just sometimes irritating when county board lads are in places where they really shouldn't be, and that was irritating me sometimes at the early start. It was like, what are these lads in here for? Like, we're here trying to win a game, and we don't need any of this. And okay, some of them have their jobs where they write out the subs, slips, or whatever it is, but they were just making up jobs just to be around at times.
Yeah. What about Tip, Paddy? How did the evolution of county board officials on buses and in dressing rooms how did it evolve during your career?
Well, I think there's a couple of stories from when Babs was manager. I think a player or two was sitting on the ground in the bus for county board officials or a couple of friends. So I think that story was going around from 2007. I think from when they played Wexford in the quarter final. But generally speaking, you would definitely have a few there. I do think it was lessened as it went on. Certainly before the game, I don't think. And if you're involved for the good of the team, I don't think it's any place for a county board official inside that dressing room. Certainly before the match, I have no issue with them being there afterwards. And you know what? A lot of them do shitty jobs like that I would never want to do, like administration stuff. And some of them would do anything. You know, they'd wipe your backside for you if they thought it might get you over the line in All-Ireland. So I have huge respect for them. They put a lot of time into it. But before the match, no, because it's there's a sanctity in there, like, and you say things inside the dressing room before a match that if it was repeated back to you sober or, you know, in the cold light of day, you go, you face palm yourself. So, it's no place for anyone apart from the players, and who's been there, as Conal said, who's training the shit and muck in January and February. Yeah, that's the person that needs to be there in the dressing room with you.
Yeah, no, that's definitely it. It's always a source of amusement for players, these lads knocking about, and they think they're running the show.
Yeah.
And you're wondering what the hell they're doing here, and their nose would be put out of joint completely if they weren't seen as being very important to this kind of setup. Like, it's a weird dynamic, isn't it?
It is. But look, they do have their jobs, but I think they don't need to cross that line where you come into the dressing rooms. And after is no problem whatsoever.
If I was a county board official, I'd be around to help, but I would, when a manager starts speaking, I'd walk out the dressing room.
Yeah, it should be the case. And look, the last that only started at the start of my career. I remember being with John Bailey. He because he was so passionate about hurling and he wanted to do the best things for it. But since whatever the last maybe 10 years that I was playing, it was no issue whatsoever because the lads were so good. They knew the story. They knew that they just come in and do their bits and pieces and they're gone again or whatever. So they're floating around and they'd get on with all the lads. It's not as if you wouldn't ever see them or you wouldn't know. And they'd be there at the club games and they'd know you then. They'd have the chat with you then. So it wasn't a big as if who's your man coming in. Like wasn't really getting nothing like that. But at the start it was a little bit. But look, they have their place and it is an important job what they do. But on game days, no thanks, not in the dressing room for me anyway. Exactly,
I'd be the same. Right, we'll come back and we'll pick our All-Stars team. Okay, so the GAA Hour All Stars team, hopefully we can find a consensus. We don't get a live video stream of the actual All Star selection committee, but we can do our one here. Owen Murphy versus Nicky Quaid, Conal, I suppose, is the obvious place to start. Not an easy choice.
No, not an easy choice, and I think the Sunday game picked up on the point with maybe Quaid is gonna suffer from being so successful team and having such a good defensive unit like James McGarry did. Like and McGarry was one of the best keepers. Like it's just that he wasn't making those outstanding saves because he didn't need to. He was doing the simple things right, and his puck outs were excellent. But I don't think he ever got an All-Star. Like so, that was strange. And I would probably go for Murphy because he made those unbelievable saves in a couple of rounds, and his puck outs are outrageous, and his frees that he can take, that he lands, it's just unbelievable. And I don't think Nicky Quaid did anything really major wrong. It's just I'd probably give it to Murphy a little bit. Just because of those big flashy saves he made, really.
Yeah, it's Brendan Cummins versus McGarry. I suppose that's the thing. The incredible saves versus the kind of slow and steady, Paddy. And Brendan Cummins has an awful lot more All-Stars than McGarry.
Well, yeah, but I suppose I'm wrong. I have Pat Collins down myself. I think he's been completely overlooked here. I really, really do. And I think just because he's new on the scene and he's not a huge personality maybe yet. I think from the very start of the year, I look back at the Limerick game, his puck outs are absolute. He's been asked to do a lot more with his puck outs than Owen Murphy. I also think he pulled off some brilliant saves during the year. So for me, I have Pat Collins. Every match I was really, really impressed with him. Even the fact that they gave a lot of the puck outs back to him and he had to do a lot of more constructive things with the ball than any other goalie. So for me, I pick Collins.
Jesus, you're making me. This is a very difficult situation for me. If I go for Nicky Quaid, we could be here all day. So I'm going to have to come down with Collins or Murphy, or else we can't move on here. We've a complete stalemate. I'm going to go with Murphy. I will take the save on Owen Kelly. I think Paddy, he didn't know much about that. That kind of hit him rather than he saved it. I think. I take your point on the puck outs. I think Owen Murphy's been so spectacular, and to be honest, that's probably the only All-Star Kilkenny are going to get. So I'll go with Owen Murphy. We all agree Sean Finn in the right corner back position. Yeah. No real debate there. There is a debate for full back is Conor Prunty versus Dan Morrissey. An interesting one, Conal. Paddy, we'll go with you first on this one.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in one. And even on the back end of it, only Kilkenny, opened up a bit. Lawler was brilliant for most of the year. But look, between Prunty and Morrissey, I went for Morrissey. I actually just think Prunty has performed very well. Really, really well. But Morrissey was if nothing was getting in by him. Literally nobody could touch him inside there. I felt like every ball that went in was just going to either be caught or certainly snuffed straight back out. The difference he made for Limerick in that Munster final was like night and day.
Yeah.
He just shut up shop. So for me, Dan Morrissey was exceptional. I go with him.
What about you,
I went with Prunty. Just the fact that I think he was excellent all season, really good, and I think when Callan got the 2 goals, a few scores earlier on him, that was so easy for him to just go into himself and and realised, oh Jesus, this is a nightmare now, this could be a nightmare. But instead he just absolutely stepped out of himself and really attacked at everything. And I don't think Seamus got a touch of the ball hardly after that. Like, so great credit for that, and he really drove the Waterford team on this year, I think. Yes, I agree, Morrissey is excellent fullback, no nonsense, nothing major flamboyant about him. But I just gave the nod to Prunty on the fact that we probably have a load of other Limerick lads on the team.
That's the thing. I'm kind of... Are we falling into that trap of trying to keep Limerick to 10 or 11 and not have them with 30? You know, because I went for Prunty as well, because he did really well on Galan too. Morrissey never has to battle against his man the way Prunty does. Prunty always seems to be exposed and he's heroic, and Dan Morrissey just kind of, they're so structured and leave their defenders in their positions. Morrissey's never exposed. He's brilliant and he's under the high ball brilliantly. I find Conor Prunty's stands out more as, you know, an exception.
Well, it's the same situation for the goalie, because of the system that they have defensively, that they never really get exposed, so they just do their nice, and whatever they do is nice and neat and nothing too exciting about it. But like, I take a fullback like that, or a cornerback that doesn't get too excited and doesn't do anything too flamboyant all the time, and he just does his job. That's enough. But
you'll never see, like, you see poor Conor Prunty, he could have to sprint out to the far wing to chase Galan. Whereas Dan Morrissey, I've never seen Darren Morrissey chase a man out that far, because, you know, Barry Nash will pick him up or Kyle Hayes will pick him. You know, they play their positions a bit more, Paddy. So I suppose maybe Dan McCormack might suffer the same way as Quaid will for just being part of an incredible system.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and he certainly doesn't have as much work to do, but I do think he was asked that he did very well, and I think if you look to previous games when he wasn't there, the Cork game to get ran through a couple of times, in the semi-final, the Munster final, 2 high balls, 2 goals for Tipperary. He steps in, very hard to get through him at all. So I do think, okay, he doesn't look like he's sprinting left and right, but I think his men, he's such an athlete that he's out in front of him a lot of the time anyway. Look, they get protection, but I don't want to punish him just because they get protected. I think he got tested enough that if he wasn't up to the standard, they'd have been leaking a few goals, which they did beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, in the other corner, everybody going for Barry Nash. I suppose Sean O'Donoghue, potentially, Paddy, his All-Ireland final performance, he might have been in the running, but geez, he'd such a bad day at the office, he's nearly ruled himself out.
Yeah, and I would have had him as the other cornerback before that, and I don't think it's all based on the All-Ireland, but it is a big one, and I just felt sorry for him because he had it tough in the final, but I don't care who's in the corner. It could be Ollie Canning in there, or whoever. They would have struggled, like really, really struggled, because after a certain period of time, so much ball is coming in, so much space, that you're just going to be picked off, and he was picked off. And look at Barry Nash again. He's never, in the last few years, been attacked as a cornerback. Like, I'd love to see him have to defend his corner, a guy twisting and turning. He hasn't had to, but the way he plays probably has a massive effect as the play goes on out the field. And like, he's a natural forward or midfielder. I've seen him play there at a young age, and you can see the way he's picking men out and he's attacking the play. And look at as far as his job goes, he played excellently all year.
Agree on that, Conal?
Yeah, exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So half back line, I went for Diarmaid Byrnes, Declan Hannon, Kyle Hayes. Can anyone make a case for that against that, Conal? Let's start with you.
I think that's fairly. I think everyone would. Well, I'm sure everyone would agree on that. Like, that's the best half-back line I can see in the country at the minute, and it is strange to have 3 of the one team in the half-back line, but they are the best 3 there. So like, you couldn't argue against it. Well, maybe Paddy could, but I couldn't put any argument up against that. That would oust any of them.
I know you mentioned Tommy Walsh, Brian Hogan and JJ, and then JJ went into fullback. The half-back line I always admired was Gardner, Curran and O'Halpine. Like, that was just the power. There's similarities, isn't there, Paddy?
Absolutely, definitely. With all those 3 half-backs, I think powerful in the air, strong men, breaking out with tackles, and if they go well on a day, then you're under serious pressure. So no, they're a brilliant half-back line. Now look, I would have had probably Tim O'Mahony in. I think Diarmaid Byrnes had a great year, don't get me wrong. But I think Tim O'Mahony really stepped up. And okay, the final wasn't brilliant, but I think a lot of Cork guys struggled in the final. But I think he drove them on. If you look at it, he was awesome going forward. Diarmaid Byrnes, brilliant, played his position very well. But to me, Tim O'Mahony did extra things during the game, scored got his goals, or I think he got a goal or 2, got points, broke tackles, and bar obviously that brain fart in the semi-final for the goal. I think he had an unbelievable game that day as well. So look, apart from that, I would have just had O'Mahony wing back, but there wouldn't, if somebody said Dermot Burns was the All-Star, it wouldn't take much on me either.
Yeah, you're kind of ruling. It's unfortunate with the final. Really, got so much Tim O'Mahony got roasted by Gerard Hegarty, and I'm ruling him out for that. Even though he was heroic in the semi-final, it's unfortunate. Like, I mean, if they'd lost the semi-final, Tim O'Mahony could be in the line
that's
for
always
one.
been the way, though,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like, nearly if they lost as well, he probably would be in, but. Probably the final gets a lot of weight, and they just didn't perform a lot of them, so they're probably going to suffer because of that.
Looks like they're going to suffer. Like, could be looking at a situation where Cork are only getting one All-Star. William O'Donoghue, Jamie Barron in midfield. Paddy, where did you go on that?
Same as you, yeah. Just that Will O'Donoghue is just like the Terminator. I don't know. It's like he's a different character or robot on the field. I don't know what it is, but he's like a Bond henchman or something. He's just mean, and in a great way. I think it's brilliant. And he doesn't let anyone go. He's always there in the rucks. I see he just walks into rucks sometimes. He doesn't even go for the ball, just shoves lads out of the way. But, class player.
He just clears through it like a rugby player, what's cleaning it out? Is that what it's called? But and even they identified William O'Donoghue in the final. They brought on Damien Callahan. Damien Callahan ran in. He would be similar enough size, but not the same square shoulder. And he was trying to sew it into Donoghue. Donoghue didn't even didn't care less.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I don't know why Cork didn't actually probably try and start like that. Maybe to try and
with a bit of physicality in midfield. Maybe they regret that. Yeah, they went with two kind of lightweights in midfield.
Yeah, no, I agree with O'Donoghue. I just put in, because I rejigged maybe a few things up front, but I put in Tony Kelly
in midfield.
I think you could probably pick him anywhere, but I think some of his performances this year were off the charts. So he has to be in somewhere, and for me, I put him in midfield. Right,
so you're making room, or you're losing, or you're making room for an extra forward. You see, Tony Kelly played full forward or centre forward, so I'm ruling him out from midfield. I should have explained GAA Hour rules. You can't pick a player out.
You can't tell me the rules now afterwards.
Well, anyways, William O'Donoghue and Jamie Barron, the jury has spoken in midfield. Then, okay, Paddy, who did you go on a half forward line? I presume, look, it's easy enough really. Tony Kelly, Cian Lynch, Tom Morrissey. Is there any surprises in this one?
No, that's my one anyway. I think Tom Morrissey, just consistency all year. Maybe the first day out didn't go great, but after that he got the message, and even when Tip were playing well, he was still in that match in the first half. Cian Lynch has brought it to another level, which I don't know, did we see happening? So yeah, and then Tony Kelly, because he had in a fixed position, I feel like, okay, Gerard Hegarty had a steady year, very, very good final, but I think Tony Kelly was spectacular, and I think it's easy to slip him in there.
Yeah, Gerard Hegarty might be, did you try to fit Gerard Hegarty in?
I was, but I think I put in Jack O'Connor, because I think I have to be putting in Cork lads somewhere, because they got to the final. Really, that's what I was looking at. And he probably loses out. Hegarty, he was really good. He was good.
The match winner really in the final.
Yeah, he was.
He got the 2-2.
He was excellent. And you couldn't not give one to Morrissey, and Lynch is cast iron in there. So I just put in Jack O'Connor because of the scores he got, and he was very good. Okay, he had a disastrous final, I think, but other than that, he was excellent. And yeah, you could make an argument for Hegarty to go in there because he had such a good final, and he did okay with the rest of the season. So it's much and muchness, but I suppose you have to have the team that got to the final represented anyway.
Yeah,
you couldn't have a full team without them.
That's the thing. Like, you could honestly make a case to give the entire Limerick team the All-Stars, and you would be able to win a lot of arguments to say that that's the team. You're almost trying to acknowledge these different teams for getting to the stage, but they weren't better than the Limerick players. Isn't it crazy All-Star year? How many did Kilkenny get in 08? Were they up around 11 as well? Paddy, do you remember?
No idea. I
think they were. I think they were, because
fairly owned it.
They hammered everybody on the way.
Look, lads, I think it's bull trying to put it around to different. But yeah, it's great to win an All-Star. But I just think, should Barry Nash miss out because there's a lot of Limerick lads, because he's not a big personality. They might just leave him out of it, or some other guy in the team there. Will O'Donoghue left out last year. Should have been, maybe because he hadn't a high profile. I just think if you put in the hours and you're a good enough team, it won't always be like this. You'll always have different ones, and I think it should be in their position. I think it's a media thing most of the time, and I think it's rubbish, and it should be picked on your merit, and that's it.
I figured out from watching Limerick playing that Tom Morrissey plays a very unusual. He you know the two spaces that are left for Flanagan and Gillan, he breaks back into those spaces. That's why he gets so many points. Like, it's unusual. Like, I mean, he's always he pops in up in those spaces just as much as Flanagan does, for example, where he's getting so many points from play. I went full forward line: Aaron Gillan, Seamus Flanagan and Patrick Horgan. Patrick Horgan was top scorer in the championship. For those reasons I put him in. Jack O'Connor, Jason Ford, Owen Cody. Like Seamus Harnedy, you could say, you know, was very good against Dublin and against Kilkenny and against he was probably the best of the forwards against Limerick. Gillan, Flanagan and Patrick Horgan. I went with Conal. Who did you go with?
I went with Gillan, Flanagan and Casey.
And Peter Casey.
Yeah, and Peter Casey. I think Horgan was good. I'm not sure he was consistent enough from play. Yeah, he gets his frees all the time. And I think the fact that he probably didn't have a massive final. But Seamus the Flanagan, I think we all talked about how good he was and what he brings to that Limerick team. Like, I think, like, he only scored a point in the weekend, but he must be happy with his performance, as in, like, really happy that things went really well for him, and he set up, I think he might have set up 1-3 or 1-4, like, and he's just a player that you'd love to have on your team, because he seems to do the right thing all the time. Like, the perfect example was, I think the game was nearly over in the second half when he came out and got that ball on, say, the Hogan stand side.
Yeah.
He could have had a pot shot over his shoulder and said, like, I want to get on the scoreboard here again. But instead he just looked up and gave a nice little ball into Mackay, and Mackay could have went for a goal. You know, so, and that's his game, and that's the whole ethos of the whole Limerick thing. It's all about the team, and it's all about giving the ball to the best position, and that's summed him up for me then. And his touches is as good as Gillan's. Like, he never seems to miss touch it, because those balls coming in at pace, trying to get them on your hurl, like, it looks really easy and they do it really well, but it's very, very hard. You know, sometimes that ball can just skid off, and next thing the full back gets the ball and they're attacking, and you look like a bit of an idiot.
Yeah,
like,
and when you're running as fast as him towards the ball,
so it's
like,
difficult.
It's difficult. You know,
it is difficult. So I give it to him for that. And Gillan, just for his scores that he gets crucial scores and goals. And I think for Casey to get, what did he get, 5 points?
Yeah, he was on. That's well, I won't say that's who I sent him a text for an interview, and I told him you were on course to get 15 points. I thought that might kind of it didn't work out. What's your full forward line, Paddy?
Same as yours, only I have Casey in for Gillan. I think he's been very, very good all year. I think Gillan has been good in spots, and I think he's set up well for a lot of his scores and a lot of his big scores. But I think Casey comes out and wins some really hard ball in tighter situations, makes unbelievable runs, and I think without him they'd struggle a lot. But I thought Peter Casey was brilliant, and I'd hate to mark him, absolutely hate to mark him.
So, like, considering the teams that everybody's picking here, that you could easily make a strong case for 14 Limerick players, and the only one would be Jamie Barron beating Darragh Donovan. Possibly, everybody else, you make a strong case for being.
Donovan is even a strong case.
Yeah, he
was unreal in the final. He was consistent all year. Barron had a couple of good few spectacular games there in the quarterfinals and the preliminary.
The
semi-final.
The Galway tip
game
games.
was over. Yeah, and then when the game was over, he scored 3 or 4 points full forward. Donovan was unbelievable as well. So you could make a case for everyone.
Yeah,
but there's no way the lads that pick this on the media, there's no way they're going to do that. Like, they're going to spread it around as much.
Oh, they will.
That's just the nature of it. Like,
yeah, but if you're looking,
which is wrong, and I agree with Paddy. You need to get picked in your position. Like, you know, I'm picking Tony Kelly. I picked him midfield. Did he play there? Not really. And you're fitting him in to fit other lads.
Yeah.
I think that's wrong. I think you need to go up against. If I'm full forward, I'm going up against a full forward from Cork or from Kilkenny, whatever it is, and whoever's the best gets it.
Well, that's it. Well, then Tony Kelly's going up against Cian Lynch. You lose out, or Seamus Flanagan. You probably, there's a head-to-head that is worth talking about. They don't do it that way anymore, which is unfortunate. I'm always complaining about that every year. Young Player of the Year, lads. It looks like Shane Barrett. I can't think of any other even nominations, which is a strange one. And Shane Barrett came on as a sub. He's a very young player. Obviously, I'm not criticising him. He started the semi-final, didn't have a great game, and was dropped for the final. And we're looking at this could be your Player of the Year. Now, you're thinking about Tony Kelly in 2013, Tadhg de Burka in 15, Cathal Barrett 14, Ozzie Gleeson 16, Conor Whelan 17. Like, these were shoe-ins. These were young players where you're going, whoa, Jesus, he's come on this year and he's been one of the best players in the team. Last year we couldn't pick a young player of the year, Paddy. We gave it to Owen Cody, ended up getting without being incredible. Can we read something into this? What's the analysis of this?
I'm trying to. I think what it might be is that the senior level, physically, the senior level has just gone to a huge standard. And it used to be years ago, like a Cathal Barrett would say, because I can remember him being there. He came onto the panel, trained away for the winter, played the challenge matches, and kept playing onto the team. Like I would say, it seldom happens now where a guy comes in the winter, does his strength and conditioning well enough, plays all the challenge matches that he's onto the team like that. Like David Clifford did it in the football, but there's not too many more who are coming into the panel and are ready for championship hurling and ready then to be good enough to be young player of the year. So maybe we just haven't had that prodigy for the last few years. But certainly, it feels like the levels they have to get to is a little bit more than a few years ago.
Yeah, young Coughlin from Limerick, if he was any other county, he'd probably be Young Player of the Year, because he looks like he's really, really ready. He just can't break onto that half. But, so maybe the outstanding young players could be coming through Limerick, only how do you break onto that team?
Yeah, no, it is difficult. And yeah, Paddy's probably right. Maybe we do need to look at it. I think it's under 21 really. It's for the young player of the year. Maybe they just need to push it out to maybe 23. Just to give those lads a chance now, because
Jack O'Connor would be in there then.
Jack O'Connor would be in there, and he would probably get the nod if that was the case.
Yeah.
But they're probably it is hard to see who's out there for a young player of the year. There's not many people really putting their hands up for it, but it'll probably go to Cork this year, I'd say.
Yeah. Player of the year, lads, I think we'll all agree it's Cian Lynch. It's hard to see. It's impossible to find anybody else unless you have speak up. He's a freak. He's so good at. I think Henry Shefflin said he's the best player that's ever played a game, and that's incredible praise. Cian Lynch is 25.
Yeah.
I think it's over the top praise by Henry at this stage of his career. I think he will end up being, because he plays hurling like no one we've ever seen before, Conal. So I think Henry
he's another 10 years, doesn't he, to play? Really,
and in the shape he's in, definitely 10 years.
Yeah. So, and
he doesn't drink or smoke or do it. He's not, into any kind.
This is the second player of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, but now I don't think he deserved the first. I wouldn't have had him as the first year he got. He definitely deserves it this year.
Yeah, he does. Look, he's outstanding. I think he's way above everyone else at the minute. His level of skill and his touch, and I would have said his temperament up until that, maybe I would say a brain fart there in the when he pulled your man over his shoulder. But other than that, unbelievable skill, unbelievable player, and to go and score 5 points in an All Ireland when probably. He would have been earmarked by Cork, you would have thought, to hone in on, because he's the man of this team that makes it tick, and he still went and did what he did, and he fully deserves it.
Yeah, exactly. Here's some stats on him. I didn't want to go into that tackle because I don't want it to seem like we're going on and on about it, because we talked about it on Monday. The centre, he registered 4 line breaks. Now, I never heard of line breaks in Gaelic games before. That's a rugby term, but he obviously broke the line. We say broke the line, don't we? He broke through the line 4 times. He completed 100% of his passes, 3 stick passes and 8 hand passes, which the hand passes thing, that's what he does. Keeps it ticking over easy and, settles into his team. We know, when you think how freakily skillful he is, to think that he's just doing the simple hand pass all the time shows that he has no ego. Here's an incredible stat, Paddy. I'm nearly blew it away. This was in the Irish Examiner. In the most congested area of the field, Lynch has completed 45 of his attempted 48 passes during the championship. 94%. In Gaelic games, football, in hurling, it's just off the charts. He's misplaced 3 passes in an area of the field where there's bloody bodies going all over the place.
And that's the key. As a cornerback coming out, I should be popping most balls. But I know once I've beaten my man, there's probably nobody else around me. He's there. He doesn't know where lads are coming from, but he's unbelievable. But I'm a little like you. A few years ago, I thought it was over the top stuff because he was the nephew of a great hurler, obviously, in Limerick. But over the last couple of years, especially since his move to centre forward, he's been unmarkable. And apart from being a brilliant player, and if you marked him all day, man marked him, it's hard enough. But what he does to your team, and you thinking about your whole team as a whole, and the problems he gives you, it's unbelievable, because anywhere he goes, you have to get on top of him. But I suppose the biggest thing about him, we're talking about him as one of the best players ever, and he's not the greatest scorer ever, and it's because he's an all-around player. He's going out to the field to enjoy it, but to pass the ball off to the man in the best position, and oftentimes he'll pass it even when his own score is on. And I think he as a left-hander, he probably mixes up a TJ Reid, mix it in with probably a Lark Corbett with his passing ability, and he just has all those things together. And as you said, he's in such physical shape. Like he's so strong. Like I marked him one of his first games in 15, I think. And I tell you, I was very lucky I met him when he was 18 or 19, because any man trying to go up against him now has it all to do.
Yeah, he definitely kind of corner forward was he when he made his first year or two. But anyway, here's the thing. So he scored 5 points in the second half, 6 points in total. And you might say, the game was over in the second half when he scored the 5 points. And, he wasn't even being marked and it was showboating stuff at that stage. If you wanted to be a dickhead and try to run down his performance. How about his first half performance when the game was in the melting pot? He was on the ball 7 times. He provided the assist for 2-4, direct assist, and scored a point.
Yeah.
So when the game was in, and we were saying on Monday, when the game was in the melting pot against Tip, he drove that comeback through his performances in the air as a battler and kind of on the ground as well. On Sunday, he had 9 tackles with 3 turnovers. These numbers are off the charts when you add them all up. He won a ruck ball and intercepted an opposition delivery. In the championship, Lynch has averaged 6 tackles per game, almost 2 turnovers per game, 2 interceptions, a ruck ball 1 and a breaking ball 1 per match. That's not, like, if you wanted him as predominantly you're a hard bit of stuff at centre forward, like a Declan Ryan back in the, win us a few balls, get in around a few bodies, you would say those numbers, Jesus, we've a right good lad there now. And take away all the skill, away all the skill.
Look, he's changed position centre forward, Declan Ryan or John Power or whoever.
Yeah.
You're in there just to keep the ball moving and not let the centre back hurl. Like, he has changed the whole thing, and his skill set, his ethos to the team, and we've talked about it. He's just an incredible player, and to have a player like that with so much ability and to be, I'd say, to be playing beside him is great, because if you make that move or whatever it is, he's going to give you the ball. Yeah. He's going to give it to you. He's not one of those lads that's going to be hitting the ball over the shoulder and drops wide and he goes, sorry, I should have passed that. We all try and do that, but he does. He gives the ball always at the right time, even though he could probably take a score himself with his ability. But it's just incredible. And look, he fully deserves everything he's getting, because he's been, I think, outstanding all year. When at times you were right in saying that it didn't look good for Limerick, and maybe in the first half against Tipperary, he was still the main man going at it and getting those vital scores and working really hard. And he had just a dream game on the weekend. And look, all the stats back up one of those performances. And I don't know where you're getting all those stats from, but
is it Brian MacDonald? Is it tip man? Is he Paddy in the?
Yeah, big into analytics.
Yeah, in the Irish Examiner.
Stats are great when you have a good performance. They just seem.
But even the stats across the year, it's just phenomenal what he's doing. I love a stat when it backs up what you're already kind of thinking, and you go, "Geez, is that good?" Yeah. Rather than anything else. Anything about the Cian Lynch, Paddy, or will we leave it there for the year?
No, he's unbelievable. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Case closed.
Case closed. So that's it. Cian Lynch shoe-in for Hurler of the Year. I don't think we completely agreed and decided on our All-Stars, but sure, look, everybody has different opinions, one or another. So Cian Lynch, Player of the Year, Young Hurler of the Year, Shane Barrett as well. So congratulations to them, even though it means absolutely nothing really. Right, we'll leave it there. That's our last show for the year for hurling. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll talk to you all when the inter-county season starts next season. Of course, we will be continuing on with club shows as per usual. So we'll talk to you all then. Good luck.